Psalm 23 is probably one of the most famous passages in world literature, let alone in the Bible. Let me read it to you. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. My cup overflows. You anoint my head with oil. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. It's justifiably famous because it's a song that's full of hope. I face the shadow of death. I face the wrath and hypocrisy of my enemies. Yet I feel safe. I know the Lord is close. I'm full of hope. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And there's a kind of quiet joy in the background of this psalm. It's where we love to be, where we'd like to be, and perhaps where we find ourselves so little. Because quite often we feel very differently. Let me read another psalm to you that might sum up where some of us feel a lot of the time. This is Psalm 6. O Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger, or discipline me in your wrath. Be merciful to me, Lord, for I am faint. O Lord, heal me, for my bones are in agony. My soul is in anguish. How long, O Lord, how long? Turn, O Lord, and deliver me. Save me because of your unfailing love. No one remembers you when he is dead. Who praises you from his grave? I'm worn out from groaning. All night long I flood my bed with weeping, drench my couch with tears. My eyes grow weak with sorrow. They fail me because of all my foes. Away from me, you who do evil, for the Lord has heard my weeping. The Lord has heard my cry for mercy. The Lord accepts my prayer. All my enemies will be ashamed and dismayed. They'll turn back in sudden disgrace. Maybe we feel like that more than we feel the sort of emotions that are expressed in Psalm 23. And it might surprise you to know that those two songs were written by the same person, King David. It might also surprise you to know that King David expected that second song, as much as the first song, to be part of the worship of God's people. So before that first verse, O Lord, do not rebuke me in your wrath, he says this: for the director of music with stringed instruments, according to Sheminith, a psalm of David. David expected that to be sung. Because Hebrew worship, by my count, well over a third of the Psalms, reflects the deep lows of human life as well as the highs of human life. And so Psalm 23 represents a kind of, this is where we'd like to be, and this is where David was, but not all the time. Psalm 6 represents where we often are and where David was some of the time. To be explicit, he didn't feel that God was close to him. He wondered if he'd done something wrong so that God had deserted him. He was having physical symptoms. His body ached, his eyesight was affected, he was bursting into tears. And he felt very, very threatened. And you can detect a sense of fear in that psalm. So the fearless boy who felled Goliath could also be full of fear. He could be overcome. Now, it's not that David was being particularly spiritual one day and very unspiritual the next day. Oh dear, what had he done wrong so that he feels like that? No, I don't think that's what's going on. What's going on is that God's word is introducing us to two aspects of the normal Christian life, the normal godly life. Some days we are full of faith, full of trust, full of joy, love and peace, and other days we are just not. And that doesn't necessarily come down to sin, misbehavior on your part. It comes down to that being just the way we are that week. And that's one of those weeks when we've just got to hold on to God the way that David holds on to God in Psalm 6 and keep on going. Now, it's possible to say, well, yeah, that was the Old Testament, Dave. Come on. In the New Testament, we're filled with the Spirit, we're full of joy, and the Spirit takes us through all of this. And you'd be wrong, because the Bible doesn't teach that. Take a look at Paul. Read the book of Philippians, where Paul is in prison, facing trial and possible execution. It's 50-50. And he's full of peace. He's full of joy. He's not afraid. Yet read 2 Corinthians chapter 1, where Paul describes a time when he and his mission team are in Turkey. We call it today the province of Asia. They called it in those days. And he described being terrified, frightened that the sentence of death had been passed on them. And there are signs in 2 Corinthians that he's still recovering from that experience. New Testament saints had their ups and their downs in the same way the Old Testament saints had their ups and their downs. And you will have your ups and downs too. That's a fact for me too. So here's 4 things to take away from this. First, it's okay to feel like this, Psalm 6. And when we feel like that, it's okay to express it to God. It's okay to say, this is how I'm feeling. Don't dress up in your Sunday best to talk to God. Tell him like it is. Here's the second thing. Hang on to God and trust him when things get dark, because things will get lighter again. The darkness doesn't define us, but sometimes we have to hang on through the darkness. Here's a third thing. Christian thinkers down the centuries have talked about a thing they call common grace. That is the fact that God blesses the human race with the ability to work out for itself sometimes how to make life better. And we're surrounded by common grace. The electric lights in this room, the video that I'm using to talk to you, the internet that you're using to listen to it, that's all common grace. So are antidepressants. So are anti-anxiety medicines. So is cognitive behavioural therapy and counselling. All these things are gifts from God to enable us to make life better for ourselves, and it is not spiritual to turn your nose up at them or to be told that it's not spiritual to take them. So if somebody says to you, look, you mustn't take that medicine because it's not spiritual, just trust God, ignore them. Because God's common grace says, yes, you can use these things. Work with your doctor to get the right dose, the right kind of medication, the right kind of therapy. And here's the fourth thing, really important. Most of us are good at being compassionate. And when we meet people with needs who are having a hard time, we reach out to them and we put our arm around them and we're compassionate towards them. Well, why not be compassionate towards yourself? A lot of Christians, in my experience, are perfectionists. They have very high views of things and very high standards for themselves. Nothing wrong with that. But it can be pathological. It can make us ill if we beat ourselves up constantly because we don't live up to our own high standards. Have high standards, yes, but be compassionate towards yourself when you don't quite meet those standards. The relationship between perfectionism and illness is very, very strong in my experience. So 4 things. It's okay to feel like that. Trust God in the dark times. Use the gifts God has given us in common grace to make things easier for ourselves. And be gentle on yourself. Thank you.